I'm the chair of the Council of Legal Education. As you see, this conference is titled The Future of Legal Education, because we are at a reflection point, an opportunity for us to ask ourselves, where does legal education go into the country in terms of the changing landscape, a changing landscape globally, where there is increased internationalization, not just of the economy, but also of governance. So we need to ensure that we are producing lawyers, not just for the Kenyan market, as one of the guests said, but lawyers for the globe. Lawyers who understand international relations, lawyers who understand regional integration, but lawyers who also understand the opportunities and challenges that those two things provide. So that's why we are, and also we are having a future of legal education, because you know the education system currently is undergoing transformation. We adopted a competency-based education a few years ago. Those students or those learners are about to reach the university in 2029. We need to be prepared as a profession to ask ourselves, what does it mean for how we teach? What does it mean for what we teach? And what does it mean for how we mentor and prepare them for the job market?
All right. There's something about integrity that we really talked about in your speech, and the importance of infusing integrity courses in terms of our curriculum. Do you still hold on that?
I think extremely critical. A lot of times, lawyers, people sometimes misunderstand lawyers. They say lawyers represent criminals. But everybody must have their day in court. But as we represent different shades of society, we must do so with the highest levels of integrity. A teacher of mine used to say that you must have an integrity like Caesar's wife, so that you do not have any blemish. It is only then that you can be able to promote the rule of law. It is only then that you can ensure that access to justice that is fair, that's objective, and that is not tainted with corruption and other ills. That's what integrity is critical. So therefore, as we train, we must ask ourselves, how are our courses training people, not just for the mechanics of law, but for the quality of the human person? What kind of values are you inspiring them? So we also live the dictates of Chapter 6 of our Constitution.
And as the chair, what are you doing to ensure that you modernize legal education?
If you read our strategic plan for 2023-2027, we have charted a path of reforming our legal education, modernizing legal education. We need to ensure that moving forward, curriculum includes questions of technology. We need to start asking ourselves, how do we infuse artificial intelligence in our training so that it aids education but does not replace the human mind? So we are having conversations. We are starting the process of, lastly, we're just currently developing regulations. I invite you to look at those draft regulations, because it's increasingly asking itself also, why are we insisting that everybody must have only physical books? We want to ensure increasingly you also have e-books. So we are alive to it, and we're doing everything possible. And I encourage you to also share with us ideas as to what more we can do to modernize legal education.
All right. Thank you so much. Sorry? Sam. All right. So, just an overview of whatever was happening here. And of course, we asked you about the legal systems in the country in terms of readiness to tackle financial crimes in the nation.
What must be understood is that the legal system must always grow. Many years ago, when I was a law student, there was only one law school in Kenya. Today, there are over 20 law schools in Kenya. The world has changed. Some will tell you we are on the cusp of the 4th and 5th industrial revolution. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about integration of the East African region. We are talking about Africa Agenda 2063 and Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We are talking about climate change. These things must be accommodated in the training of lawyers. And this conference is designed to anticipate those changes so that the law graduate who is produced in any of our law schools can carry his or her own weight, not only within Kenya, but within East Africa, within the African continent, and indeed the world. Many times in this country, people think that appearing in court is what constitutes legal practice. Perhaps that is only 5%. Legal practice is in every area, is in aviation, is in international relations, and those are the things that must be given their pride of place as we get into the 3rd decade of the 21st century.
What do you think is the future of CLE? ensuring that they give proper education for lawyers?
Remember that the CLE's role is a legal regulation of legal education. But let me be very blunt. It is becoming very difficult to regulate legal education and indeed to regulate anything in this country because we have negatively politicized everything. Every community now wants a law school in their region. The quality of lawyers notwithstanding, until the day that in this country we liberate ourselves from ethnicizing everything, then despite the best intentions of the best of us, very little will be achieved. This, therefore, is a direct appeal to populism, which is now rampant in this country. Let bodies that have mandate fulfill their duties. Don't use underhand means to say our community must have a law school. That is the problem in this country.
Thank you so much for your law. Asante
Thank you.
sana. Asante. Have the next. Okay, you can just take the stage.
Thank you. My name is David Tor. I'm the Director of Legal Services at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And coming from a law enforcement agency, I wish to say that the lawyers, either in public service or in private practice, have been entangled in economic crime or corruption or in bribery, either knowingly or unknowingly. And so it is important for the Council for Legal Education to capacitate the lawyers in terms of knowledge, skills, and the evolving conventions which have been signed by Kenya. It is important for CLE, or Council for Legal Education, to empower the lawyers in terms to do with the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the African Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption, and other laws which have come into force. I wish to say that after the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya, so many laws were been put in place, and so the Council for Legal Education needs to see that the lawyers who are serving in various counties, before there were no counties, now that we have so many counties, and we have very many legal professions working in the counties. And these, especially the county attorneys, they are supposed to advise counties in terms of procurement, and as we know, procurement is the leading cause of corruption in Kenya. That is where people get quite a number of contracts. We also have issues of conflict of interest. Kenya recently passed a conflict of interest bill, and these are things that the CLE should be very keen on, so that the people, the lawyers who are working in those public institutions are better equipped to advise those who are implementing the various laws of Kenya. We have Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which is a new dispensation in our country. Long ago, the issues of morality were left in policy, but now it is entrenched in the Constitution. So all these issues of integrity, leadership and integrity act, and the issues of bribery, lawyers should be able to grasp them. Some lawyers, as I've said, are unknowingly engaged in money laundering, and this is because at times because of lack of knowledge. So Council for Legal Education needs to see that the modern crime is taught to lawyers practically and in a situation where they can be able to grasp the modern times of crime. Not like before when people used to go to banks with guns. That is no longer there. People can be able to sit in their offices and design crimes and be able to achieve their goals. So the lawyers should be ahead of them, and this is the work of the Council for Legal Education, to standardize the curriculum of the legal profession. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Asante sana. Good. Sawa. Welcome. Sawa. Ready? Sawa. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. My name is John Kahiro from KBC Channel on TV, and maybe you can just introduce yourself and tell us what's happening here.
Yes, I am Francesco Keke. I'm the team lead of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime Africa Anti-Corruption Hub, which is based here in Nairobi. For us, this conference is extremely important because our organization supports the development of the criminal justice institutions, especially in the area of transnational organized crime, corruption, money laundering, financial crimes. And of course, the role of lawyers is extremely important in these areas. As you probably know, the lawyers are among the designated non-financial businesses and professions highlighted by the Financial Action Task Force as important to address financial crimes and money laundering. And so they play a key role, and we are here to see how, through the cooperation with the Council of Legal Education, we can establish a practice of helping universities, law schools, and all other interesting actors in supporting lawyers and all those that practice legal activities in developing their capacity in the area of anti-money laundering, and mostly understanding how not to violate the law, how to support perhaps investigations, how to support the law enforcement authorities, and how to play this key role in the criminal justice systems that they have to embrace. So the cooperation with the Council on Legal Education is extremely important from that perspective, and we hope we can continue with them and with various universities in the countries to support this important area of work.
And of course, there was that question of, or rather the thing of, placing our legal fraternity at the global stage, not just training lawyers to be just in the country serving the Kenyans, but placing them at the global stage. What should we do as a country?
Well, I mean, it's important to establish cooperations with the universities abroad to start with. I know there's quite a good cooperation with the UK, but there's many other countries that offer interesting opportunities for young lawyers or for people that want to study law to develop their capacity, establish their networks, and get contacts which are relevant. The United Nations is conducting a lot of work with regard to criminal justice, as I said, anti-money laundering. We have international conventions also, the UN Convention Against Corruption, the Transnational Organized Crime Convention, which are legal frameworks that are extremely important and becoming more and more relevant for the sustainable developments of countries in Africa. So also understanding about this international framework, studying international aspects of law, can be a good avenue to expose young lawyers to a global stage, as you say, to the international forums, and to play a role in the development of not only of the legal community but of the country of Kenya itself in terms of economic and social development. There's opportunities also in the frameworks of the African Union, for example. So these have to be known, understood, and we are really, welcoming cooperation with the universities here to explain also these frameworks, to have, more and more Kenyan lawyers joining us in this on this global stage for the enhancement of criminal justice institutions.
How do you rate the legal education in the country?
It's a difficult question. I think that there are, what I can see from my side is that lawyers I talk to and the lawyers I know of with regard to criminal investigations, the trials that I follow in the countries are extremely well prepared, and there's a good level, at least for the senior lawyers that we interact with more often. So I hope that I've heard some issues around perhaps problems with bar exams, which I don't know exactly which are the issues, but I really hope that the Kenyan institutions can produce a system that enables a good education and fair exams, and also that the exams are real, they are very well organized and allow the best and the brightest to get into the legal profession, because that's what is needed. So we are really, as UNODC, we are willing to support this process as well.
All right, thank you so much. Asante.
To join you at this Inaugural Conference on the future of global education and training in Kenya and the East African region. I wish to express my sincere appreciation to the Council of Global Education, the UONDC, African Development Hub, and other partners for convening this timely and forward-looking dialogue. Your collaboration reflects deep understanding that the future of governance, justice, and economic resilience in our region depends fundamentally on the quality, integrity, and global competitiveness of the global professionals we train today. Since independence, global education in Kenya and East Africa has an option and the Kenya School of Law, alongside continuous reforms in education systems and the growth of our universities and bachelor institutions, has contributed greatly to building a stronger, more coherent, and more accountable. Limited integration of emerging fields such as digital law, artificial intelligence, compliance, financial integrity, and transnational practice, and the need for greater harmonization of professional standards across Eastern Africa. Sharing best practices and aligning curricula across countries and regional frameworks like East Africa Community will be critical in producing lawyers who are globally competitive and regionally mobile. Indeed, the environment, transnational crimes, including money laundering, terrorist financing, cyber-enabled fraud, and illicit financial flows challenge economies and public institutions across our region. These shifts demand a reimagining of how we train lawyers. Traditional doctrinal approaches,
court judgments, and other things that we must be able to grapple with as a society, as a regulator. But we also have concerns about the quality of advocates entering the market. In fact, I've been telling colleagues who provide legal education that I think the challenge we have is not a competition between one law school or the other. A better job than ourselves. There are instances where, and the President of the Law Society is here, where there are people who are masqueraded as advocates, sometimes successfully for 2 years. So the question that it raises, what does that mean about our regulation? What does that mean about our training? When somebody who has not stepped into a law school, or as my former teacher, others who are much more suited to be farmers, others who are much more suited to be dancers, nothing wrong with any of those things. But his duty was to ensure none of those people left the gates of the university purporting to be lawyers. But now we have a situation where those butchermen, those dancers, those farmers, go to court, self-represent and represent others much better than ourselves at certain times, until Faith and colleagues catch up with them for being masqueraders. Colleagues, if we look at the mirror, what does that mean about the quality of legal education? Question number one. Question number two, and Faith spoke to, conveyancing is restricted still to conveying land in an environment where debt, and I see my good friend Immaculate Kasai, the Commissioner of Debt, I see, is the new oil, where the subjects, the 9 P's that we teach, are principally focused on practice as being the practice that Kitobu Manyara knew, the practice where you practice at the marginal spaces. Are we training for the market in the 21st century, or are we training for the market as it was then? Challenges for us to be able to address. Colleagues here have spoken about the regional perspective. Globalization, commercial financial systems, and digital technologies increase the risk of money laundering, terrorism financing, corruption, and organized crime, all which demand new competencies from lawyers across the global space, despite the challenges that globalization is facing. The new lawyer is a lawyer that must be able to deal with questions about regional standards, mutual recognition of qualifications, and mobility of legal professionals. I'm glad the President of the Law Society spoke about it, because colleagues, we definitely have challenges around that space. But those challenges all being kept thrown to the doorstep of the Council of Legal Education. Even though, when you look at the law, there is what we we are going to have a reciprocal arrangement. It must be a reciprocal arrangement that we all respect. If we think there's a challenge, it must be a challenge that we all address and not ask CLE, what are you doing about it? We have nothing to do with reciprocity. Somebody else does. Please do it. So colleagues, as an end
of the regulative and supervisory role that the Council of Legal Education plays. Accordingly, we share in the consequential function of ensuring that we not only have the continuity of justice and forge new frontiers of opportunity in the practice of law as we know it. Our theme today invites us to look back with unconstrained honesty and forward with optimistic vision. Legal education for globally competitive lawyers challenges us to reflect on the past, to account for the present, and to chart a future that strengthens both our legal systems and societies. John Dewey once said, "We do not learn from experience, we learn from elite." To a present where almost every region in the country has multiple institutions that offer legal education, a challenge that the CLE is facing today, and people are raising questions. A time when students of the revered university generations to enter the profession and has enriched academic diversity across our communities. 2 weeks ago, I attended the admission of the bar of some 920 new advocates of the High Court of Kenya. Among them were a few notable names, personalities that we have known in many other spaces and given several different titles, and yet they retained an